If you're a shill for being honest, so be it. I honestly believe there was no 24-hour sun.
I honestly believe, I heard honestly multiple times there. And last time I checked, honestly is distancing language. Like he's trying to get away from whatever he's saying, which again would be a marker for deception. But in this case, it's maybe something embarrassing.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of all sorts of things here. So it's not just, I mean, it is embarrassment, but it's also the fact that I think.
All right, we are joined again by Gavin Stone, returning to discuss. Well, this should be interesting. Okay, because I have Gavin on a lot. We talk about body language. A lot of people think that body language is pseudoscience and they love to make fun of it. But in the spirit of being truly meta, we're going to discuss, well, I don't even know what you would call it. Galileo, I believe, many hundreds of years ago, determined that the earth is round, and it was kind of an unpopular thought. But over time, most people have come to conclude that the earth is round. However, in modern day, we do have some folks who are absolutely certain that the earth is flat.
Flat earthers generally believe the world is a circle surrounded by an ice wall and covered with a dome. Within this dome there is a small sun as shown here, though not to scale. It's about 1,000 miles above the surface and circles the North Pole in the middle, along with stars and 1 or 2 self-luminescent moon disks. As far as I know, this is considered the entire universe.
And that brings us to our video today. Gavin reached out to me to say, hey, this is an excellent case of body language and something that appears to be deception, but is actually something else. And it involves a flat earther, which confused me immediately. So, Gavin, tell me who this guy is.
So this is a guy called Jeron Campanella, who was an advocate for flat earthers or flirters, whatever you want to call them, all over the world. And he basically got an invite by a gentleman called Will Duffy, who said, I will fly you personally down to Antarctica to show you that there's a 24-hour sun and disprove your AE map, which is a azimuthal equidistant map, or basically the flat Earth map. He said because you can't have the sun if your flat Earth is an ice wall all around a disk, then the sun can't be 24 hours. He said, and if you do come down, will you accept the fact that you're wrong and I'm right and put this whole debate to bed, which we thought we'd done as a human species a long time ago, but it still seems to be going on. So yeah, the long and short of it is there's a lot of things on the internet already where they flew him down and he did an apology video. And the guy's a popular YouTuber, and he did an apology video where he said, I'm wrong, I'm sorry. And it's caused a massive debate amongst loads of people on the internet who are saying, this should have been settled a long time ago. And another load's going, no, we still don't believe you. We think he's been flipped or he's a government agent or he's been paid off or bribed or whatever the case may be. So I thought, well, his video, even though I'm not getting involved in any kind of debate of whether the world is round or flat, his video is a brilliant body language example of somebody who could be showing signs of deception, but not actually being deceitful. But we'll cover that as we come to it.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's not hide the ball and let's just look at this. I have not watched this video and it's all new to me.
Sometimes you are wrong in life. And I thought that there was no 24-hour sun. In fact, I was pretty sure of it. But
immediate folding of the hands.
Okay, so that's a defensive posture, right? Yeah. That he's uncomfortable with this scenario.
I think he's been put up for this, tripod out, like, tell the world you're sorry. And so he said, I thought there was no 24 hours on. The moment he said that, he's folded his arms, he's changed his posture a little bit, he's shown a little bit of discomfort. And we're only 5 seconds in at the moment, and there's a few different signs already of kind of even though what he's saying is he's seen the 24-hour sun, he's showing what appears to be deception, but we'll cover the reasons to why a little bit later. But that's just another bit. The next bit doesn't come along till about 30-something seconds.
Okay, so just let me reframe this a little. So what you are saying, Gavin, is that this is a hostage video.
Yeah, well, close.
In a sense, right? You're a hostage to your faith, and somebody pinned you down and said, okay, now you've got to read this statement, or you've got to express this.
Yeah, so he didn't look too happy about the whole thing. And let's face it, it's 35 grand to fly down there or thereabouts. And he's got down there. Now, if somebody pointed a tripod at you and said, well, the only way you're getting back is if you let me record you, then you... But I'm not saying that's the case. What the situation is they've said, look, we've proved you wrong. There is a 24-hour sun. Now, please, swallow your pride and tell the world you were wrong and you're sorry.
Sometimes,
and let's face it,
you are wrong
didn't really
in
have
life.
much choice.
And I thought that there was no 24-hour sun.
$35,000.
But I respect Will Duffy for being a stand-up guy, at least in the way that he kept saying it was true. I kept saying it wasn't. He said, "You want to go? I'll take you," and brought me here. And it's a fact. The sun does circle you in the south. So what does that mean? You guys are gonna have to figure that out yourself.
Did you see that little single-sided shoulder shrug that he does just there, which is, as you're looking at the screen, is on the left. That's, as he's saying, you should be able to accept. He's got that kind of bit of a single-sided shoulder shrug. Well, I just put them in my notes as 4S. Single-sided shoulder shrugs are 4S. What's unusual about that is on this side, as you're looking at the screen, it's on the left. He does that again a couple of times later when it's on the other side, on the right, as you're looking at the screen, and then goes back to the left. Now, whether that's relevant or not, I don't know, but we'll put it into a little bit of context. But it's unusual.
Hold on, it's just like a eye accessing cues versus shoulder accessing cues type of question?
Yeah. So generally people have what they call hemispherical tendencies, where they will gesture one side for positive and the other side for negative. So, they'll say, oh, I went and had this really great day over on the beach, and they'll gesture that way. And they'll say, oh, I was having a really awful day, when it was raining, and they'll gesture this way. And that's their tendencies are, positive and negative, one side or the other. So I don't know which way around it is with this guy, but what I have noticed is that he does the left shoulder twice, once at the beginning, once at the end. He does the right shoulder twice, both in the middle. So
do people also do that with time passing? That they tend to say that the past is in one direction and the future is in the other direction?
Yeah, timeline. Yeah, so that's something that, and again, that can vary from person to person. So they might turn around and say, "Oh, it's right in the future," and they'll be pointing forward, or they can say, "It's way in the future," and they'll be pointing to the side, and way in the past and pointing to the left. So you've got, depending on how they personally view it. Some people will say, "Oh, it's in the past," and go behind them, and it's in the future and go in front of them. Some people will go side to side. So it depends on their personal kind of tendencies, as it were.
You guys are gonna have to figure that out yourself. Don't listen to my beliefs or my opinion. It shouldn't matter to you, but at least you should be able to accept that the sun does exactly what these guys said as far as circles the southern continent. So that's about it.
You'll also notice there on that little bit, I mean, he shoved his glasses up, which could mean nothing. But with all the things together, with the shrug, with the glasses being shoved up, and the fact that his posture's changed, because you'll see again a few different times in this, as he's standing there, he's kind of moving backwards and forwards, and it's very cold, so he's probably got to try and keep moving anyway. But what goes from a forward and backwards kind of I don't even know what you'd call it, but pattern, then goes to a left to right all of a sudden, and then it goes back to both forwards and back. So he does that a few times. Whether that's just something habitual, whether that's something keeping him warm, hard to say, but it seems to be in that cluster of that area where he's saying you have to accept. So, which indicates the fact that he's not happy about the fact that he has to accept.
Okay, and now so far it doesn't appear this has been edited in any way. It seems to be a continuous shot. Is that correct?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, this is all the way through. There's no editing or cut shots or anything else. It's on a tripod there in front of him, and from start to finish, it's all the way through him with no clips.
Good. And one thing nice about this, and maybe you can confirm this, it appears that it's 100% on him nobody else, so we don't miss something when we go to look at somebody else's reaction. It's all him all the time.
Which is great, yeah. And I love it when that happens. The only time there's a change is at the very, very end when he goes off camera and somebody comes on, and which I assume is Will Duffy, but it cuts off at that point.
Okay.
I realize that I'll be called a shill for just saying that. And you know what? If you're a shill for being honest, so be it. I honestly believe there was no 24-hour sun. I honestly now believe
that was where you got the side-to-side stance. So you got the shrug when you said you were being a shrill. There was also a very, very brief micro-expression, I think, at that point of disgust at the idea of being called a shill, and his stance changes. You'll also notice there are times that his cadence increases as he's talking. So he'll say, if it means I'm being called a shill, so be it. And he'll get it over and with. He's not happy about that entire thing at all.
What? If you're a shill for being honest, so be it. I honestly believe there was no 24-hour sun.
I honestly believe, I heard honestly multiple times there. And last time I checked, honestly is distancing language. Like he's trying to get away from whatever he's saying, which again would be a marker for deception. But in this case, it's maybe something embarrassing.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of all sorts of things here. So it's not just, I mean, it is embarrassment, but it's also the fact that I think, I mean, looking at the big picture here, you've got two people who've both got an argument, and they both believe it so much that they're willing to spend multiples of tens of thousands of dollars to fly to the other side of the world, to go down to Antarctica and say, look, see, the sun is in the sky circling us. And he's gone down there thinking, you know, he's put his money where his mouth is. I mean, the other guy paid for the trip, Will Duffy, fair play. But he was that intent on proving a point that he's gone down there expecting to not see that, or expecting maybe to see something else. And I think when he's gone down there and gone, does circle, doesn't it? And it's thrown all his beliefs out. And now he's going to be a case of, well, how does that work? I don't believe, personally, that he's gone down there and seen that and now gone, okay, I now believe the earth is round. I think he's gone down there and seen it and said, I still think the earth is flat. I'm just not sure how you've pulled this little magic trick. And that's the honest where I'm at. That's how I see it. He's, and this is why there are these signs of deception. He's been caught out, if you want to call it that. He knows what he knows his beliefs are wrong, or what his perception
or contrary.
Yeah,
he doesn't believe he's wrong.
Exactly. So now he's at the point now where he's like, all right, you know, the flat Earth map, as I thought it worked, can't, but that doesn't mean we live on a globe. And this is where you're getting a lot of these mixed signals. He believes what he's seen. He believes the sun has circled him in the sky, but he doesn't necessarily believe that the Earth is still a ball.
That's it. If you want to call me a shill, so be it. I'll live to see another day, and at least I know that I got to see it. And I just want to say thanks to Will. Through everything, you've been at least kind to me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the trip. If you guys want to, my whole master plan worked for getting a free trip out here, and to, but no, it's amazing. I can't even tell you. Flying in was the best thing I've ever seen. So, looking around, best thing I've ever seen. So, you know, how could I give him a hard time for bringing me down here? $35,000 trip. It's been incredible. It will continue to be incredible.
There was that look of disgust as well, by the way. Sorry, I do apologise. If you just see that bit where he says, you know, how can I be angry at him or whatever it was for bringing me down here? You know, it's been amazing. You see that look of disgust. You just see he's on the right-hand side as you're looking at the screen, you'll see his lip curl a little bit, and he's just not happy with the
Is it disgust or contempt? I always get a little confused because I thought contempt, you know, was a non-parallel, whereas disgust is kind of parallel.
That's right, yeah. So contempt, is kind of usually the one that is non-parallel. But I think in this case, it wouldn't be contempt because of possibly contempt, but I think it's more leaning towards the fact that, you know, he's kind of annoyed at being kind of caught with his hands in the cookie jar, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
My whole master plan worked for getting a free trip out here, and to, but no, it's amazing. I can't even tell you. Flying in was the best thing I've ever seen. So, looking around, best thing I've ever seen. So, you know, how could I give him a hard time for
Yeah, he does look like he ate a turd when he says best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
bringing me down here, $35,000 trip. It's been incredible. It will continue to be incredible. We've got some tracking mounts swinging around, seeing the sun. What does it mean? You have to figure it out. You know, to me, it means that the AE map no longer works, but that doesn't mean that I'm right. It means that it could work. You'll have to figure out how, because I've tried. And
that was almost a Freudian slip. It doesn't mean that I'm right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of backwards. I think that in his mind, he's saying, doesn't mean that I'm wrong. Or I don't know. That's a very confusing statement.
It is, and I think that is something which, I mean, it threw me a little bit, because you're expecting to say it doesn't mean I'm wrong, and he said it doesn't mean I'm right. So, and of course, I think, like you say, it is a little bit of a Freudian slip. I think he's possibly even still a little bit confused. You know, he's had 24 hours of sun and gone back and thought, how is this? How can I make this fit my map? Rather than accepting, you know, the fact that it's a globe, he's gone, there's got to be another way. There's something I'm missing, and he's there's this whole wrong and right debate that seems to be going on in this camp, as it were. There are also, I think, another bunch of globe and flat earthers that they all went out there at the same time. He was the only one who actually come on camera to say, "Hey, you know what? This is right. You know, the sun is circling above us."
Oh, interesting.
I don't know what the views of the rest of them are. I don't know whether they accepted it, didn't accept it, too embarrassed to come on camera, what the situation is. I don't follow any of this or this world, and I don't know. I haven't seen any of his videos since to be able to say whether he's come on camera and said, you know, here's another theory or whatever else. So I just know that I saw this particular video, and I thought there are a lot of body language cues to show that what would normally be seen as deception, and I'm not necessarily picking them up as deception. Maybe a little bit of confusion, maybe a multitude of things, but something there is definitely ticking boxes to say, you know, he doesn't necessarily believe what he's saying, or he believes the bit about the sun, but doesn't necessarily mean it marries up with his beliefs on the world.
Fair enough. By the way, in terms of flat earthers, the last flat earther that I can remember knowing or hearing about was a guy who supposedly he built himself a rocket and took off in the rocket to prove, hey, you know, if you go high enough, you'll know that it's flat earth, right? Or it's not. Well, he never made it back down. And what was interesting about his story is some of his friends or people around him, if I recall, came out later and said, he didn't really believe in this. He was trying to get publicity to help fund his rocket expedition. So, I never know about some of this stuff, because in terms of getting fame, getting popularity, sometimes taking the contrary view is a sure way to get more notoriety.
I suppose. Well, if anybody is out there listening, I don't believe that the Bahamas exist.
Well, I know somebody who said Australia doesn't exist.
Yeah, so if anybody's willing to prove me wrong and fly me to the Bahamas all inclusive for a week, then please get in touch, because I genuinely don't believe they're there. Or the Maldives, that'll do as well.
No, yeah, well, same argument here. Australia, no way. New Zealand, not possible. Definitely.
I've tried, and I struggle with it. The other thing is a 24-hour moon. If that happens, you got another thing we got to worry about. So it seems like the moon does circle here as well. So you start thinking about that as well.
He's angling for another trip.
Yeah, I'm wondering there, because he actually said, if that happens, and then he said, it seems the moon circles here as well. So obviously the two doesn't happen at the same time. So he's only seen one or the other. So
correct.
Yeah, you're right. Is he trying to say, I need to go back to confirm this next, in 6 months' time?
I'll tell you what, though, if I was going to go to Antarctica to prove a point, this is the point I'd want to prove, because when the sun is out 24 hours a day, it has to be the mildest that it's going to be down there. When the sun is not out 24 hours a day and it's the moon 24 hours a day, I would argue it's probably not comfortable being down there.
Yeah.
So
I've not been on either occasions. Being perfectly honest, probably don't really want to go on either occasions anyway. But I'd prefer to go somewhere warm, sunny, sandy with cocktails.
totally agree.
It doesn't mean that AE map is over, flat Earth is over. Maybe somebody's got the answer. I don't have that answer right now. So just want to say thanks again. Appreciate it. Thanks, Will. Yep.
And that is Will Duffy at the end there.
All right, cool.
So yeah, nice and short for you. But yeah, it just goes to show that even though he's talking and kind of showing these deceptive signs, it's not necessarily deception in the sense of he's out and out lying. It's just a case of, yes, I've seen the sun, I've seen it circling Antarctica, but I don't get it and I don't understand why, and I still don't necessarily believe that the Earth is a globe. And therefore he's trying, like I say, trying to make it fit his world. So there's a lot of conflict going on in his conversation, and that's why these body language tells are showing.
Okay, what I find very interesting about this, the subject itself, not very, but the individual, this is to me part of a progression in potentially changing a mind. Now, I think it fits that he's not going to be completely like, okay, let me just chuck out everything that I've believed, researched, spent all my time on, and chuck it out now. I mean, there's something called cognitive dissonance or cognitive biases. You're not going to naturally do this. This is something I think gradually takes time. It would be very interesting to interview him again in a week, and then interview him again in a month, interview him in a few months, and then just let this sink in to where he can resolve it in himself. And I'm not sure. Have you ever heard of an individual, Daryl Davis?
No.
All right, Daryl Davis is very famous because he has talked out a lot of neo-Nazis and Klan members. And he literally has a collection of Klan robes, like in a trunk.
Many of those who've left have given Daryl their robes and hoods. He keeps them in his home. It's a journey that is documented in the film Accidental Courtesy.
I consider Frank to be my friend.
I consider Daryl to be my friend as well.
From all these people who are in the Ku Klux Klan that he spoke to, befriended, and they wound up giving him the robes. He's a black individual, black American, and he's done this. Now, the path with all of them, I don't think is completely dissimilar to, well, really any of us. I'm taking an extreme just because it's easy to visualize, but they felt, they did not like people of other races. They had big problems with that, right? And then they come across this guy and they wind up befriending him. And so now we've got a problem with the entire outlook, right? And that is, everybody in these different races is bad. Well, except for Daryl. Daryl's okay. But as soon as you do that, now you've got a crack, right? You've got a whole crack in this foundation. Well, now here we go. The Earth is flat. Well, except in Antarctica when the sun spends 24 hours a day sometimes. And I personally think we may be looking at the first crack in a changing of the mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is exactly how cognitive behavioral therapy works. In its origins, CBT was the founder of CBT, as it were, was actually done by the North Koreans. And I think you know a little bit more about this than me, probably. But the whole kind of they couldn't figure out how patriotic American soldiers were all of a sudden going, we hate America, we can't stand it. And they were like, hang on, what the hell's going on here? And what they did is they sat them down, and there was no torture, there was no force, and they just said, look, we just want to know about America. Can you write a list of things you love about America? So they did. And I said, okay, brilliant. Now, can you just do, obviously America's not without its problems. What problems would you highlight that you think would be solved and make America a better place? So they started writing all the problems. And what they did, they took that second list and they gradually said, tell me more about these problems. Tell me, why this is bad. Tell me all these bad points about this, and and what happens is you start down a path, and you've got two paths, and you go down this path until eventually you've said, yeah, this is bad about America, this is bad, and they've got no other information, and they're just bombarded with all the badness and all the badness repeated back at them, and eventually, after I think it was 3 months of being bombarded with the same message, they come out literally hating the USA. These are formerly patriotic American soldiers, and that's how CBT, as we know it today, was kind of born. So yeah, very much like what we're saying. I just, by the way, I'm going to sidebar here a little bit with that whole. I love the fact that you've got two globes in the background while we're doing this. But yeah, the whole kind of bit you're talking about there is that crack. That's when you once you've got that crack, you can then leave it open a bit more and a bit more and a bit more until you can change somebody's mind entirely.
Well, perfect. So we have the viewpoint of changing somebody's mind to be a better fit into society. And then we have Gavin's very dark Robert Lifton studies of Korea or North Korea, which has been tied to almost all cult training and indoctrination throughout time. Scientology has been accused of using similar techniques, and really many, many, many other cults have used this kind of thing. So, like anything, it could be used for good and it could be used for evil.
Just a tool.
I am going to say that this is a case that it might be getting used for good.
I would hope so. I'd certainly hope so. Like I say, I don't want to get involved in the debate because otherwise, I don't even want to say the words because somebody somewhere will snip it and put it somewhere and say this is what he said. But going back to the kind of the body language thing, you can definitely see that there are signs of doubt and conflict in what he's saying and seeing. And like you say, it will be interesting to go back to his channel and see what his views are in a few weeks and a few months' time, whether he's going to take one path or the other. Because going back to what you're saying there, his whole life and identity, even his YouTube channel and his following, is all built on the belief that the earth is flat. So when somebody comes along and rocks that world...
100%. And by the way, I do want to put out an open invitation. No conflict, no gotcha, nothing like that. I would love the opportunity to interview you about your experience and your thoughts. And if you haven't changed your mind, I would like to know that as well. I wide open. I want to put it out there, and all of us, it doesn't matter what Gavin and I think anyway. I want to hear what all of you think. Please comment below. Do you think that somebody changing their mind? Do you agree with our analysis? What are your thoughts about changing deeply held beliefs that may go against the norm? And until next time, thank you so much.